Hello, welcome to Bedroom Builds at a different video because today I'm here interviewing Aram. He is the writer of Rust-based software that I use every day on all of my machines. And yeah, let's see how other programmers discovered Rust and decided to use it for their cool open source software. So hi Aram, thanks for agreeing to do this interview for my channel. Yeah, let's first find out where you're from and how you became a programmer, basically.
Ooh. Yeah, I was born and grew up in Tel Aviv.
Mm-hmm.
These days I live in Vienna. How I became a programmer, I think I've been kind of I kind of came to it through the I guess back then we called ourselves sysadmins world. I was really into Linux as a teenager and installing like Red Hat 5.9 I think it was then, and getting your dial-up modem to work and all those things. And then I kind of got into Bash to automate stuff, eventually Perl, and kind of continued through there.
Yeah. So my background would be, well, I grew up in Vienna, and hence this interview was happening because I can meet with you in Vienna. And my programming background is similar, so we have a similar age, I guess, because I didn't use Red Hat, but the SUSE Linux from back in the day, but also like an early version, 6 point something. Yeah, also discovering programming and setting up web servers and whatnot around that. And yeah, from there I actually started off my first internship with C++ already. But then I quickly moved over to using PHP for web stuff because it was big, and then transitioned over to Python. And yeah, mostly doing backend stuff all my life. Basically databases, complicated mail server setups, stuff like that. So I guess this would be called DevOps today.
Yeah.
And then this became a transition into doing, well, what is that now? Data science, I guess. And yeah, my current job is then also data science, I guess. What is your current one, more or less?
I am a open source maintainer.
So this is your full-time job. All right, cool. Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah, for sure. So you also went through the phase where you were kind of doing sysadmin stuff, or sysop, maybe it was called in the day, and then someone came and told you that you're actually a DevOps.
Yeah, exactly.
And then,
that's probably how you can describe that. Because I always set up also my own servers just to know and learn how this actually works and stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. And then I kind of hear from your story that a similar transition happened, and then like a few years later, someone told you that you were a data scientist.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, it's always change of jobs, but they had different requirements, and that was then basically data science.
Yeah, I like it because it like kind of tells us about our industry, that the jobs we do are bigger than the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. Every one of us kind of does a lot of things, and then we move in different directions, and like the industry says, oh, okay, so this has a different title now, and the trend now is to like group these things together, like this 70% of your job. So if you're actually doing that, then you're a DevOps, or you're a data scientist and such. And like I kind of speak of it with like I kind of joke about it, but I think it's pretty cool, because personally to me I really like the whole of the thing, like the using code in order to make things happen, and getting people to use the things that you create, and such. I'm eagerly waiting the day where we will finally like kind of merge the roles of software developer and product manager, because I really think these two are the same thing.
Okay, interesting.
And it kind of bothers me when either one says I don't know the other, when programmers say like, oh, I don't know what this is supposed to do. I'm just like kind of optimizing my thing.
Okay.
And yeah, and on the other hand, product manager says, no, I don't know, like I'll leave the algorithms and everything to the developers. And like, I really think this is that we need some like synergy there.
Yeah, I agree, because you cannot be ignorant as the programmer to say you don't know the bigger picture. And on the other hand, you can also not claim that you only see the bigger picture and have no clue about the details. That is very true, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, interesting. So let's talk about the software that I use every day for more than a year now, I guess. On a real regular basis. Of course, I tried it out before already. So it's called Zellij. I guess it's like a terminal multiplexer tool kit, I guess. It's not really the same as tmux or screen. So if you know GNU Screen, that would be a similar thing, or tmux. But Zellij I found way more powerful from the start. Yeah, so what is you created it. So how would you describe Zellij? So this is how I use it basically. But maybe I'm using it wrong.
No way to no way to use the software wrong. I think I see Zellij. I call it terminal workspace, and for sure it is also a terminal multiplexer like Screen or tmux. But in my eyes, this is like kind of its infrastructure layer. So that's kind of where we started. So so like that's the most complete part, I guess. But Zellij is also a runtime. We have a WebAssembly plugin system, meaning that we can take WASM blobs, which can be compiled to through many different languages, almost any language, and we are able to run them. In Zellij, we run them as first-class citizens, like terminals. You can have a terminal window and you can have a plugin window. We use this internally, for example, if you've used Zellij, you have the status bar and the tab bar on top. Both of them are WebAssembly plugins. We recently added the session manager. That's another plugin, and we're kind of moving in that direction. When we see Zellij as a workspace and a runtime, we can see this as a platform that we can use in order to develop and run software. Kind of similar to what the browser became over the years. And this is what we're trying to build with Zellij. This is like kind of my vision. I think the terminal is like vastly underutilized platform, and there's a lot of stuff to do with it, and it's everywhere. Yeah. I think the terminal is in more places than the browser, for example. And like we can use it in order to do essentially anything you do on the computer. Like imagine that you have this like kind of small task that you don't have a dedicated software that does. Let's say you want to convert a video file. Okay, to convert a video file, maybe do some editing or something like that. What would you do today? You
do open some user interface, big software like iMovie or something, and
like you don't have it installed.
Yeah, exactly.
You just need to you go to Google or whatever, you search MKV to MP4 or whatever, you find a site that does it for you.
You use the cloud somehow. Yeah, that's also true nowadays.
At least for me, that's the first thing I do. I go to a search engine, do this thing. I don't care. Track me, show me ads, whatever. Why not do this in your terminal? Why not open your terminal, have a search engine on the web looking for a plugin for this, essentially. MKV to MP4, have an open source thing that someone wrote, it's a WASM file, you download it to your machine, you run it on Zellij, you have a nice interface that shows you do this, blah, 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 and move on. And this it's just one example, but it's like, I see it essentially in the future as like an application platform.
That's interesting, because I figured the current plugins at least would give you like a file list or the session manager or help you with the shortcuts of Zellij, which is all really helpful. So I was always thinking along those lines. But now it makes more sense to have basically an easy-to-use user interface in a terminal that does a complex task like converting videos to a certain resolution or another file format or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's clever. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So Zellij is dreaming bigger than I am currently using it, I guess. So I would use it on my servers to keep stuff running in the background and or basically for convenience to be already open in certain locations with certain users or the shell into SQL Server or whatever. And on my local machine, I would use it for development. I would have my editor open and then jump around in different tabs and panes that will help me, figure out if my software runs, the tests are okay, stuff like that, right? But yeah, I never thought of that, so that's clever with the plugin system.
But it's like, for sure, I use Zellij for the same thing. I use it for development. I develop Zellij inside Zellij. I use Vim. This is the main thing it does today, and it does it well because it's a journey. We're building the infrastructure in order to create the more interesting stuff. Like moving forward. I don't think we can write plugins that it will be difficult to write plugins today that convert video, but definitely possible. But I think it will become easier and easier over time.
Yeah, the ecosystem of WASM gets ever better too, right? So should get realistic, all right?
Yeah, I hope so.
So Zellij is an interesting name though for this platform. I've never heard this before. What does it actually mean?
Zellij is a style of Moroccan mosaic. They have if you imagine like a kind of a Moroccan mosque in your head, then sometimes you see all these beautiful colorful mosaics of different colors built out of different stones and glued to the walls. I very much encourage anyone watching this to do a quick search.
I will probably put up some images if I find them online.
Nice.
Yeah, it's true, and they are not symmetric, right? They are chopped up into the pieces to make the pattern nicely and not just squares, for example, different colored. They would be like triangles or close to whatever. Yeah.
I am not an expert.
Yeah. No, me neither. But that's how I remember them because I was amazed that they would perfectly fit, but still not be symmetric, which is also its own beauty on that.
Yeah, it's a very intricate form of art. I find it really beautiful, and I found it to be a really nice metaphor for what we're building. I didn't come up with it myself. One of the other early maintainers, when we were looking for a name, our original code name was Mosaic, but that name is kind of.
It's already taken for a web browser from a long time ago.
Way back. Right? So yeah, it's also taken up in the memory of people of our generation, of our technological generation, I guess, and also taken up everywhere. Really, it's hard to find a domain with that name or anything. Imagine, so we were looking for a name when we wanted to go public, and one of the other maintainers found this, and we looked at the pictures and said, "Hey, wow, this looks really this is a good analogy to what we're building."
Yeah. So those custom pieces that together form something beautiful, kind of thing. All right, interesting. So at the start I was comparing Zellij to tmux and Screen and stuff. So is your goal to kind of replace those tools, or is that out of the question and you build your thing that you find interesting?
A lot of people come to Zellij as wanting a tmux replacement, tmux or Screen replacement, or Biobu, if you've heard of it. It's
well, I have not. I have to look it up. Yeah.
It's Biobu is kind of a wrapper for I think either tmux or Screen. I think some niceties on top of it. I think it's not really maintained. I'm not sure, but still a lot of people use it and want to switch over. Of course, I welcome these users. It's great. I want to make a tool that works great for them, but this is not my target audience. I'm building toward the future, toward what we talked about before. So
an application platform,
an application platform.
Not necessarily a replacement for say tmux, for
example. So you can definitely use Zellij today. That's the main thing we currently do. We currently have implemented, because like as we talk, it's a journey. It's being developed. So you can definitely use Zellij as a workspace for development and such. But a lot of people come and say, I need this small feature from tmux that does this one thing with this like particular, and I'm like, I used to say, okay, here you go, but it never ends.
Yeah, exactly. So then you implement one thing after the next.
And then it's not working exactly the same way, and like I respect you wanting your tools to behave the same, but like maybe stay with tmux. But like this is, of course, I want to emphasize that it's not a wrong way to use Zellij. I am a terminal developer. I use Zellij as my workspace. Like this is definitely one of the main use cases, but it's like, it's a sort of, you get what you get. We give you like a tool that you can configure it in the ways that I think are interesting to have it configured, specifically building like plugins to automate your tasks, building layouts to like share your workspaces with other people, things like that. But like, I'm not trying to copy any other terminal like multiplexer. I'm like kind of, we're doing our own thing.
Well, the way that I discovered it is I wanted to have like a one-stop solution to recreate sessions, right? And I used to use tmux p, which is like a Python-based helper that allows you to store a config file, if you will, that then would reopen up a tmux session, create the different tabs, going into directories, already starting some software, right?
Cool.
For example. But every now and then this kind of broke because, I don't know, tmux version was out of sync with whatever this tmux p was giving. And then it didn't as freely allow me to do what I wanted to, user interface wise. And that's how I discovered Zellij actually, right? Because I was thinking, oh, there must be some other tool, either for tmux or maybe like a completely different one.
Yeah.
And Zellij I discovered, right? And from the get-go, my needs were met, right? Because I had my development platform, if you will, which basically works the same. I had to learn some new shortcuts, or by default, actually, some tmux shortcuts work right away. And also from a requirement to recreate those sessions with your config files that are based on KML, which I've never used before. Sorry?
Cuddle.
KDL, actually, yeah, it's true. So how did you come up with the idea to use KDL for configuring? Because there are so many other things already out there, no toml files and normal ini files. So why would you use KDL?
So we originally used YAML.
YAML, okay.
But like YAML is great, but it has this thing, you know, maybe you've seen the...
yeah, there's like some security or safety issues around that, no? How you load files and this can then execute code and stuff like that?
For me, the issue was that white space is meaningful.
Yeah, that's also
and you have to you like kind of have a nested structure, and then you're like, what is this here? And and it's like it's kind of for me it seemed kind of hostile, not very and not very friendly. And so we were looking into different configuration languages to try out. We looked at toml. But toml, I'm not sure how it is today, but at least at the time it didn't nest well.
Yeah, well, you have to wrap your head around that. It's kind of hard to understand, I think, because you have to use those sections, but then repeated section names are basically the indentation, if you will, right? For or nested elements.
Yeah.
So then it's actually all on one thing that is kind of redundant if you have deeply nested structures. For a simple config, I guess it's okay-ish.
I think you know toml much better than I do.
But but that's the thing though. So KDL avoids that. That's true. Yeah.
Then we looked at Cuddle. it's like fairly new, but I'm not afraid of adopting new things.
Yeah, sure.
So it was pretty cool. It has like native Rust tooling. The only thing that it didn't have that I like had to write was like the syntax file for Vim. And I know, okay, we're a tool for terminal people. This will come up. So I wrote it. It's like 20 files, 20 lines, like cuddle.vim, and then it's like, okay, we can adopt this now. Nice. And it's like, it's really cool. I think it's a nice language. It's also, what's cool about it is that its syntax kind of lends itself to being similar to writing command line stuff. So it kind of looks the same. It almost, we sometimes have conversations with the cuddle people because they're, the developers are working on 2.0 right now. And we kind of had talks about whether bare strings should be, like unquoted bare strings should be supported. Okay. And like as first-class nodes and stuff, and I think they didn't really like it. I'm not sure. Like Cuddle 2 is still kind of in progress. So I'm not sure what they ended up with. They didn't really like it, but I was like, no, come on, let me be able to take a command line, copy paste it as is, throw it into a Cuddle file, and have it and have it just work. Yeah. Either that or have, like, we currently keep the terminal state, like what you have in your viewport and the scroll back and everything like that, or not we, the world currently knows how to keep that state in ANSI. No one likes ANSI. So I was thinking it would be really cool to keep that state in a Cuddle file, to be able to like have text like that is as is. You throw it into a Cuddle file, and it is a terminal, like it is a terminal viewport and scroll back without styling.
Serialized basically.
And then like as is, copy, paste, boom. And then if you want to add styling, okay, this word is red or something, then it's a Cuddle node. You add like a curly braces, say color equals whatever.
Then it's human readable. That makes sense.
It's human readable. You can like also kind of like ANSI, you kind of can interpret it progressively, like on the line. You don't have to get the whole file, and because that's the cool thing about ANSI.
You don't have to wait for it to be fully charged.
That's the selling point of ANSI, that you can kind of read it on the line and go. So I'm not sure if this will be possible with like the new Cuddle, but anyway, I think it's a cool format.
Very cool. So what sparked the idea to write Zellij, basically? Did you come up with the other original maintainers, I guess? Or your own idea was like, okay, I'm going to write this tool because the ones that exist don't fill my needs, or what?
Basically, as we said at the beginning, because I started with the Linux system stuff, and so I always developed in the terminal. I always used Vim and work like that. Like most terminal developers, you kind of many use like the internal Vim tools and such, but many of us just kind of build our own environment around Vim, like stuff to run programs and like check I don't know, to check syntax, have multiple instances and things like that, things that you kind of get in an IDE. So I first did this with Screen, then I moved to tmux, then I moved to i3, instead stayed with i3 for a while, and it was kind of nice. Like my desktop was my IDE, and it was like very cool. I can open like a terminal window with like a Vim instance, and another with like a file explorer, and the file explorer would be like a terminal program that you or like clicked on a file, and then it opened like it talked to i3 and opened like your default terminal with like your default editor with that file and everything. And if you wanted to like run tests like from like to tell your like a linter or whatever, lint the file that I'm in right now, then again you connect with the Vim script and like and it's really cool and it definitely does the job and looks great and yeah, but then you're like, okay, I want to buy a new computer.
Yeah,
and they have this soup of bash scripts and Vim scripts and Lua and what have you that kind of does its thing, and then they're like, okay, so then you end up building a script that installs your environment on a new computer. But then like the script has dependencies and you have to, and you kind of know how to make it work and it's okay. But then you want to, but then like one of your coworkers who also happens to be a Vim user, like I say, hey, this is cool, how we do that? And you're like, I don't know, I wrote it in 1997. And you kind of like guide them through to make it work. And like, of course, today there are a lot of tools. There are like, I think it's called .env and things that like kind of do scaffolding for your environment and such. But then they don't do the like the thing with like messaging between different windows and having the file system open your default editor and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. We need a solution for this, and the solution needs to be a standalone solution that doesn't depend on anything.
Yeah.
That it's an executable that runs, and you have a configuration file that describes your environment that you give as an argument to this executable, and that's it. So Zellij was born.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Out of personal need with a concrete goal, very clever. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is basically why I'm using it, because I have this one config file that I can use with my presets, and that gives me peace of mind, because if I reboot the computer, or as you said, change to another one, because I don't know, you change company and you get a new machine, or you go onto a new server. Now I install Zellij, I have my config file, and everything's happy, right? Nice. That's cool. And you chose to write the tool using the Rust programming language.
Yes.
Why would you use Rust in the first place? You could have written this with a myriad of other programming languages, I guess.
I would say that Rust kind of chose me.
So the other way around, okay.
Yeah, because I was, at the time I was learning, I wanted to add like a systems programming languages to my tool belt, so I learned Rust. And to me, I really like, for me, the best way to learn a new language is to build something with it. Yeah. So I built some small applications, and I'm a terminal person, so I built terminal applications. Like, I really like doing things all the way. Like not, for me, if I have like an unfinished program, then it bothers me. It sits in the back of my head, and so I like to finish things. So I finished my programs, and for me, finishing programs is also like, I don't, in my opinion, like a tool or an application or anything like that is not done until it has users.
Makes sense,
like because otherwise it's an intellectual exercise. You need to use it, and one other person needs to use it. Then it's like, then you can say, okay, it's a tool. Maybe if you want, you maintain it sometime, and but you did the thing. So I did this with these tools, and the cool thing about Rust is that it has such great tooling around it that people just love applications that are written in Rust. For example, the ability that we have, like basically out of the box, to compile Rust code into an executable, like a muscle executable that runs basically anywhere, is amazing. You can of course do that with other system languages, but not as easily with Rust. And like I'm adding like a line to my CI and it's done.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's true.
And people like, and because of that, if you write good applications, people adopt them. I remember the first Rust application that I wrote is called Bandwidth. It's like a terminal program that shows you which processes on your machine are taking how much bandwidth. And it has like a nice UI and such. The UI is also like, I came from the web, so the UI is also responsive. Like you make the terminal window smaller and larger, and you see more information and
cool.
And stuff like that. And people really loved it. Someone put it on Hacker News. It got to like #1, and so got users. And then I did it again with another application called Disconaut, which shows you kind of a visual map of the disk space taken on your hard drive.
Ah, cool.
Like if the directory takes more space and it's bigger and smaller, and all of this in the terminal. So also people adopted it. I think people still use it today. Like Disconaut, I don't maintain at all. I don't think anyone maintains it. Bandwidth has a new maintainer right now, doing a great job. But getting to your question, then I was like, okay, so I know how to do this. I know the full stack. In my opinion, the full stack is like, because we were also talking about the users, and then like you also have like to kind of tell people about your application. You need to know which people to tell, how to tell them, both tell about your application and tell it to people who want to hear about it, who might want to use it. And this is kind of very specific to the ecosystem you live in. So I'm like, okay, I know how to do this in Rust. I built 2 tools in Rust. I managed to get the word out. So I know both the tech side and the product side and the user side. And so, okay, what do I really want to build? And then came Zellij.
Using Rust to develop those tools, and then finally Zellij, I guess. You have a lot of experience now writing code with it, I guess. What would be... Obviously you chose it because Rust gives you what you want to write the code, but there must be something that you don't like using Rust, I guess, or a shortcoming where you feel like restricted in, I guess, development speed or something.
There are a lot of things about Rust that I don't understand. I'm not a great Rust developer. I know how to do my stuff. I know how to get it done. I know how to talk to other Rust developers and such. But there are things about the language that confuse me. Like the first and foremost is the lack of semicolons. Meaning that this statement is returned from this block rather than the return keyword.
Yeah. You can still use the return keyword, but it's frowned upon, if you will, right?
Yeah, you're encouraged not to.
Not to.
I like to write large functions. I know it's kind of unpopular and such, but I sometimes find myself writing functions that are hundreds of lines long because it makes sense for this function. It doesn't make sense to break it away. It's okay. It does the job. And they're like, where does this return? Because then you have to kind of find the place in the middle. You have a match statement. The match statement has kind of different branches. Here, this returns here and this returns here. Instead of just doing /return enter
to find
where it returns.
Okay.
I'm like, now I kind of need to figure this out, and to me that's super annoying. But I guess there is a reason behind it.
Well, not reason. I'm obviously not one of the creators of Rust, but what I find is good about that, if you will, is there is no distinction between a closure returning something because the last statement does something, and the rest of your code. And in other programming languages, Python would be one of those offenders. Like a Lambda function is what they would call a closure, and these are completely treated differently. They only allow you to write the one line basically already in the first place, and then that is without using the return keyword, also then the returned value. But the rest of the code requires you to use the return keyword. So there is this distinction that is then also kind of hard to read, I guess.
That's kind
and then the other way around, now if you have this mini closure that only I don't know, computes a multiplication or changes a data type or something. Does a data type conversion. There, if you have to write return and a semicolon, that's also then redundant extra information, I guess. But I get your point though. If you have a larger structure and the last match statement can be a huge block actually, and everywhere is basically a return, but which one is the one that is affected? Yeah, that's hard to find out. That's true. Yeah. Never thought about that like that. But yeah, sure. Everyone has their own style of writing, and no language, I guess, will fit to
for sure
like a glove to how the programmer thinks, anyways. When I looked a bit at the source code of Zellij, I also realized that there's no of this premature optimization going on, like using references to strings instead of actual allocated strings, or lifetimes in general are sparsely used or not at all, basically. Is that on purpose, or do you just not need that level of performance and so you don't care, or I don't know?
The Zellij code base is pretty big, so it's kind of this is of course an it depends answer, but I generally try to use like the simplest form of the language that I can, both to help other developers, but mostly to help myself. I don't even like use traits internally. There's one place in which I tried to use a trait internally. This was like way back. We have so Zellij has panes. So a pane can be a terminal pane or a plugin pane, because plugins are first-class citizens. So when we originally wrote this part, it was me and one of the original maintainers. I wrote the terminals and he wrote the plugin. So we said, oh, amazing, let's do a trait, like a pane trait, and put like all the stuff in there, and then have and then implement it on the terminal or on the plugin. That was a huge mistake. To this day, because you don't need it. Most of the stuff is just implemented like on the trait anyway. You don't need different like implementations for each one, and then kind of on the other hand, your function signatures are like this. Like every function signature that accepts a pane is box dynamic pane. It's like, why do I need this? Like I use traits as like, external interfaces. When you have like for our Rust plugin SDK, Zellij style, which people use to develop plugins in Rust, then we export a trait. That's like there it makes sense, because you need to tell the developer like implement this on your own thing.
Exactly, the third-party developer knows, oh, this trait requires me to implement that, and then I have the full feature. Yeah, it makes sense.
But that's for example like about traits. But you asked like about lifetimes and references and such. My go-to is to just clone immediately, and I find that most of the time that's the right answer. Like if I pass by references, I will eventually get to I'm trying to people tell about Rust that it's very verbose, that you have all these like all these lifetime indicators and go different kind of races and such, and that you have to like kind of I always like to use metaphors from like tabletop role playing, because that's also like used to be a big thing for me as a teenager and such. So in tabletop role playing, you play D&D or something like that. So you have the basic D&D books, and then you have the expansions and such. So I kind of see all the complex features of Rust as the expansions. Like I like to use the basic stuff. I don't want people reading my code to have to like really parse the
know about all these
know about all this like the subclasses, and I can be like a half druid magician and and all that is like. So I basically start with the assumption of I don't need this, and I'm just going to clone, and then I do like there are some places where I use like lifetimes or pass by references and such, and like only do this when I like absolutely need to, when it's like a deep performance question or things of that sort. But for parsing command line arguments, I clone. I don't need to.
Because why not?
Yeah,
and how often would you clone? Twice or something? It's not in a hot loop or something. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and I find that like most of the critical performance bottlenecks are not there. They're in. Like for example, we have our plugin system is WebAssembly, and we use in order to communicate between the guest and the host system in like complex types. Then we serialize them. We serialize them over the wire. Like here's this struct, take it, deserialize it there. We use protocol buffers in the middle so that like it's cross language and such. Cloning and memory management are not relevant when you serialize stuff like that. Like it's an order of magnitudes slower anyway. So like and then like in terminal land, I always joke and say that most of the existing applications in terminal land have a refresh rate of 1 second and do it badly. Like you kind of see like you imagine. I think even top, when it refreshes itself, you have like a second of
you
see that
CPU
like,
percentage or something.
You have like true. A click. You see the refresh like in front of your eyes, and it's like so for sure I want to be performant and such, but this is my standard. There are many more of the more modern applications are faster and like are much nicer and such, but still like the optimizing passing references in memory and such is
for a terminal is not worth it basically.
Not really. Yeah. In most like 90% of the cases it's not relevant, and then the last 10% I try to pay attention to it.
I kind of also see your point that this way the code is easier to read for a newcomer coming towards the code base, and that's also what I often realize is if you have good crates that have a nice API, you can actually write Rust in a very concise way where you don't have to know all about those lifetimes and traits and whatnot. The only reason where you would have to is if you really need the performance, or you are actually a person that is implementing yet another crate or trying to implement a variant on a trait for, I don't know, a driver for some embedded tool or something. So I guess if all you want to do is write similar code as you would do today using Python, that basically uses some machine learning library and then some other math library, you don't know how to write those high performance thingies, right? But you don't have to. You call those API functions that are really nicely prepared for you. And then it's actually straightforward and not that hard to learn.
For sure.
As you say, those extension books for D&D basically is what you have to then look up when you want to go deeper. But on the surface level, you can actually go very far, and it's fine to clone and not
for sure
care too much about some compiler issues where you then have to explain the lifetime to it. And that's very true. So you said already multiple times even that you use WASM for the plugin system of Zellij. You also already mentioned that the idea is that anybody can write in their preferred language something that compiles to WASM and provide it to the end users. So I guess that was one of the motivations. But what else? Because it is a fairly new technology. You could have gone with a normal dynamic loaded library as well. But you didn't, so maybe you can explain how you came up with the idea.
So, like, really, the main selling point to me is, as you said, is that like which language I know is not a barrier of entry. It's something I spent the last few years of my career before I started working on Zellij in like writing developer tools. Like commercially, and when you write developer tools to other developers, you really realize a lot of blocks that are not supposed to be blocks for developers, but are. Because in our culture as developers, we say, oh, it doesn't matter which language I know, I can learn anything. Like this is what you're supposed to say in the interview, of course. And while it's technically true, it's kind of a lie that we tell ourselves, because look, we each have our language that we like and that we want to write stuff in. And learning a new language, even if it's super easy, even if the language like markets itself as an easy language, and it's like, oh, come on, how difficult it is to learn Lua or Bash or Python or JavaScript or whatever. But even if that, we don't even try. Because like there is a block in my mind. It's like it's not my language. Start learning something new, and so I don't want people to go through that.
Yeah,
I want people to say, I use your language, write a plugin for me in your language. I'm not trying to like sell you on anything or yeah. So that's like the main the main issue for me. Other than that, I like the sandboxing. That kind of comes with it, like that you can kind of be sure, as much as you can be sure with any sandbox, that the code will not be able to escape outside of the system. Because like, think about other stuff that you run in your terminal. You like download a bash script from the internet, from somewhere that you hope you trust, and it can like do rm-rf/ or sudo rm-rf/ and say, I need sudo in order to run, and and that's like the good scenario. The bad scenario is that it like steals your passwords and installs spyware in your machine or whatever. So here we're kind of sandboxed into, like WASM sandboxes us into a specific directory on the file system with WASI, which is like the server interface of WASM. And then like with us, because like everything else that the WASM file is able to do is kind of gated through Zellij. You like talk to Zellij APIs, and so we do like we fill in the sandboxing from the other side, from like what WASM doesn't provide. Like we do on our own.
Zellij provides with the protobuffer communication.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly, and we have a permission system, and we gate API calls behind the permission system, and you get like a nice screen of this plugin is asking permission to make web requests or whatever, and you can decide what to do with it. So that's the sandboxing. The third thing is like I think I kind of mentioned at the beginning that it's a fairly new technology, and I think it's cool to get into these things on the ground level, and then be able to take a piece of technology and say, this does what I need it to do right now, and in the future people will add like a lot of cool stuff that I can choose whether to adopt or not, but it's not like a set technology, like something that's like it does what I need it to do now, and that's all it will ever do. So that's also a selling point.
Yeah, it's true. It will evolve and probably offer new amazing opportunities in the future. Yeah, that's true. So you are kind of excited to use WASM technology, I guess, but sure. Have you run into some disadvantages where you were like, oh man, this would have been easier with something else, or are you like happy with your decision?
There was a point, I think a year or two ago, when I almost gave up. I was like, I'm moving to Python or to JavaScript or to Lua or to whatever. I can't do this anymore. Because it's both a young ecosystem and one that and really I'm careful saying this because I'm very much an outsider to WASM. I'm not doing the development. I imagine they have a lot of difficulties and a lot of reasons for this to happen, but from a user perspective, it's extremely slow. The progress, not the performance. The progress is very, very slow, and it seems like they're dealing with a lot of very hard questions of platform compatibility and infrastructure, which I'm sure are super hard, but I would like to get a workaround. To okay, we can't give you threads because we have all these problems, and here is a workaround that you can kind of get threads, and maybe it won't work everywhere, or but get going. It will work on all the platforms that you need it to work on, and we'll kind of move on. But it doesn't really happen. to my knowledge at least. That's definitely a pain point. We've had to implement a lot of these things on our own, like web requests, for example. You just tell Zellij, do a web request. And yeah, performance is not great. It's definitely, you can in certain situations get it to perform as fast as native or almost as fast as native, but not really. But in most situations, it's just much slower. Not a lot of choices for runtimes. The runtimes are not easily interchangeable. It's not super trivial to say, okay, right now we're using WASM, so I want to move to WASM time. Not like that would be a major refactor for us. Okay. And it's also our problem, but also like APIs and standardization and like problems and yeah. So a lot of pain points, but like I'm at a point where I'm happy with the choice. I'm happy with the way things are right now. It took a while to get there, but like on the whole, the plus is yeah, the benefits outweigh the
gripes that you have.
Yeah, no. So one last thing is that another disadvantages, which is like it's a bit painful, specifically for me, is that of course he said that the major selling point is the fact that you can write in any language, but that's like, it's nice on the paper. But like for Zellij, you can write plugins in Rust. We give you a Rust SDK. You can write plugins in Go because like someone from the community like wrote a really cool Go SDK. But like my dream is to be able to tell people you can write plugins in Python, in JavaScript, in Bash. You know, I don't care, whatever. But that's super hard. It's possible, but very, very hard. I talked to other people who do similar things, and I have even like heavier constraint than ours because they like kind of do. We just serialize stuff over like over the WASM boundary, and they like do kind of pointers to functions and such, like even more difficult. And they like they usually say no, we just use Rust. It's just too difficult to do anything as Rust or Gleam. I think is a new language that kind of yeah, not sure. But yeah, so. It's a nice story. It's a super cool and interesting piece of technology, but it has a ways to go. I'm happy to walk that way with it.
Yeah, no, I also like the idea that, as you said, you will not have to convince somebody, I used, I don't know, Lua as the scripting language for Zellij in your case. And now people have to learn Lua that come maybe from another background, but all they wanted is write some fancy tool that they want to have updating in the corner or something. And this way, anything that compiles to WASM can be used now, right? So that's definitely a great advantage. And nothing is perfect anyways, especially when you're dealing with a technology that's coming from a consortium, right? Because WASM is with the Web3 consortium, and everybody brings in their problems and go like, no, slow down. We have to also think of, and then something where you maybe not really care about. Yeah. And there will be no good enough solution. It will be either working for everyone or no one kind of thing. That's a disadvantage. It's true. Interesting. We just spoke about the plugin system, the WASM, but that obviously means that people hopefully write plugins for Zellij already. How's the I guess ecosystem or the community dealing with that? Do you have like success stories or?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I try to do with plugins is to take the burden of to take some of the burden of maintainership and development off of me, because I am one person. I can't do everything, and people say, oh, I want a configurable status bar, or I want to be able to do this and this and that, and it was like, here's an API, write a plugin. So there are like definitely lots of plugins in in that area. There's like I think the most successful one is called ZJ Status, which is a configurable status bar for Zellij. You can plug it in instead of the status bar, and it does whatever you want it to do. Like you can run, you can have it run a command like every interval and show you the output of the command on the status bar. Style it however you like, stuff like that. It's really configurable. I don't even know the whole thing, like everything that it does. It's a super cool plugin. The only reason I don't use it myself is that I want the stock Zellij experience to be a good one. So I use stock.
This way you eat your own dog food and kind of realize if something bothers you in your own product, then you will improve it. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's good. So I will have to try that stuff.
Check it out. It's an awesome plugin.
I'm honestly trying to get as minimal as possible with Zellij. So at the beginning, of course, I kept the amazing shortcut helper bar at the bottom. But after a while, you know your shortcuts, if you will. And if I forget something, I will actually just use a different Cuttle file and have my status bar and learn it from there, and then I keep going.
Nice.
This is my solution right now. Yeah. But yeah, if I want to have something updated, I guess that would be interesting. I also never really customized much. When I used NeoVim, there's also like all kinds of fancy status bars that show you Git information and whatnot. But I have that in the terminal anyway, so I was like, not really for me. So I think plugins is cool. So you already have third parties writing stuff for Zellij. But I would think that people also write bug reports or come up with pull requests for the code. So how's your experience with like the community around your open source software, or open source in general? It's not the first tool that you wrote that's publicly available.
Here it's a bit more of a sad story, I guess. So I love open source. It's what I do for a living. I think it's a good way, but I've not yet found a good way to to do, I guess, long-term collaboration, because most people who contribute to open source do it in order to learn a new technology, maybe to get some contributions for their CV and such. So what usually happens is that a person comes and contributes something fairly small, and then maybe another small thing because they found this issue report and it's similar to like they know the area of the code already, so they can fix it. And but then they kind of like lose interest, go somewhere else, and that's okay. That's great. But from a maintainer's perspective, this is a bit of an issue because a maintainer doesn't spend zero time on these things. It's like, and you often unless it's like really small and concise and super like high quality finished stuff, then like it usually happens that the maintainer ends up spending more time reviewing this and communicating with the person than they would just fixing it on their own.
That makes sense. You have to understand first what they actually submitted, kind of, right? Then maybe realize, there is some limitation that maybe they have not thought about, and then you have to explain that. Yeah, you have to explain that. You have to talk. You do back and forth, and you're like, and
that's
not interactive either, because if I am in a different time zone from you, which is realistic, right? Since we are in Central Europe, there's a good chance somebody from South America or Asia kind of contributes, right? And then it takes like days, to resolve that.
Yeah, for sure. So this is I still haven't found a way around this, but sometimes there are contributions of people that come and like do really, really high quality stuff that solves a problem that I would not know how to trivially solve myself. There was recently, like actually in the upcoming version, there is a fairly large contribution from someone who improved the line reflow performance of the terminals like significantly. Sometimes you had situations where if you have a line that is like 100 megabytes long, like just a line of text, and Zellij would crash. Like it would just be super, and not just the line, because just the line is okay, but then you scrolled up and then you're dead.
And then it would, okay.
Yeah. So this person, like, did they, the really classic open source story, like this is something that annoys me in a software that I use. So like they went into the code base and just fixed it. And this is like an ancient part of the code base that is like spaghetti codes, like to death. For me, it's super hard to get into there. And yeah, and this person like was also like a really seemed to me like a very, very proficient Rust developer as well. So they also taught me a lot of things about Rust that I did not know, about like memory alignment and like stuff like that. So it was really cool. I learned a lot from this PR. And like they also fixed a problem that like was critical and affected like quite some users. So it was cool. Every now and again there's like stories like this, and like great. I'm very grateful for when these things happen.
So there's a good balance then. That's nice. There is a Matrix chat, and I would assume that you probably also have a Discord going or some other stuff. So how's the community using those communication channels? Is it actually helpful, or are there some flame wars going on? Or
no flame wars. No, we're a nice, friendly, kind community.
It's a nice community. So people should join and help each other there.
Definitely. The Discord is much more active than the Matrix. It happened that way. I'm not sure why. I think Matrix has a higher barrier of entry. I think it's more difficult to get into Matrix than it is to get into Discord.
Yeah, I think Matrix makes tries to make more effort now to keep your data anonymous and a safe login structure. That might be the barrier to entry. That could be true. Otherwise, I find it fairly cool to use. I have it even on my phone and on the computer. But I also use Discord, so I can see how the easy access to a Discord. You click a link, it opens in the system, and then you're in there. Yeah. That's nice.
In Discord, most of the plugin developers hang out on Discord, so there's a lot of like plugin development conversation going on there. I want to have some sort of bridge between Discord and Matrix, so like kind of to merge these communities somehow. But it's like there's so many things to do. I never get to it.
Yeah. So kind of like a bot that would mirror what people are saying on Matrix within Discord or something like that.
Yeah. There are like things like this for like back in the IRC days. There was like bridges between like IRC and Gitter. Like I think it was a thing then. Like so there must be something like this between Discord and Matrix. If someone watching this wants to do that, that would be awesome.
Maybe there are some pointers. There must be a tool already existing.
For sure. Yeah,
I would be amazed if that doesn't exist yet. Interesting. So that's a positive as well. True. The monetization. Pull requests are coming in. Some of them are a burden. Some of them actually are amazing. Then the community around this is positively helping each other, writing plugins and or helping new users onboard the Zellij configurations and stuff like that, I guess. But you said that this is your job, right? You are an open source maintainer.
Yep.
So where is your money coming from? Do you have like a big donor going on, or is there some financing scheme, or do you have plans how to make money with Zellij somehow?
Difficult questions.
It's a big one, but I guess many people would would love that, but have this romantic idea of I also have this cool idea for my software. So why would I not try the open source route instead of trying to sell it, or stay with the current job that I have?
So first I'll like be open about like what's going on with me. I have a GitHub sponsors. Right now I get about $800 a month, something like that, from sponsorships. But for me this is not enough to live on.
Makes sense. Vienna, 800
Yeah.
Euros is probably the price of your apartment and then a little bit of food.
Yeah. So not much more. So yeah, paying for my apartment and like food for like the crows who visit my balcony. But that's basically
like
it.
bread. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm building toward like a place where I can live off the sponsorships. That is my goal right now. So I'm like filling it up with savings.
So you have savings from your previous job, and this is basically your startup funding, I guess. Like your runway is people helping with the GitHub sponsorship, of course, and you try to end up with a sustainable way in the future by writing the correct tool.
Yeah. So I try to delight my users, do the make an amazing tool that people love and would like to pay for. A lot of sponsors are like, with every release, I always say, like, if you like Zellij, please consider contributing between $5 and $10. You get value from it. I'm not charging you money. I'm not showing you ads. I'm not tracking you. I'm not collecting your telemetry. Nothing. I'm just giving you an awesome tool. Like, up to you. If you are able, then I would appreciate your sponsorship. And a lot of users give. A lot of users do. We have a really, really awesome community. I was really humbled by this. So that's great. So I see it just need to make the user base bigger, make amazing features, make the software do more, like work towards the application platform things that we talked about, and that is like the main route that I'm going. But right now I'm also with one of the other maintainers trying to build a service on top of Zellij. This will be something that we completely opt in. I just want to mention Zellij will always be free and open source. I will never charge money for Zellij. I will never even charge money for extra features in Zellij, or a pro subscription or whatever. No. But I do plan to give users the option to connect it to an online service. You said, for example, that you use Zellij with a configuration file on your server and you just move it from server to server. So imagine how cool it would be, instead of a configuration file, you have a URL. And you just do Zellij minus whatever URL, and you get your configuration, and you're able to update that URL. You can have you can give this URL to your coworkers, to other people in other companies. You can work with these layouts that you export to the URL. You can make them private or public. You can have a layout for Rust projects. You can sort of create things on top of it. And this is the service that we're currently building, on the side, and you'll be able to opt into it if you want. Probably, I'm not sure about the monetization, but it will probably be something along the lines of if you want to publish things to the service, you'll pay an X amount each month. And everyone else can use whatever you publish, assuming it is public, for free.
That sounds interesting. And I would think, because I can open the same Zellij session again, kind of collaborate, if you will. So that would be a thing that could be with less friction on your service too, if you somehow make it online available to a person that maybe is confused by using the terminal but wants to learn about programming or whatever, and then you can show with a shared Zellij session online, oh no, if you do it this way, then
for sure, terminal sharing.
Terminal sharing kind of with ease access kind of thing.
Definitely. We're definitely going in that direction as well, to be able to just to, maybe if I say it in a different way, to be able to share your session. To have a share button inside Zellij that you press, and then you get a URL. Then someone takes that URL and they're in your session. And they're in your session with Zellij. I guess you try it, but for people who haven't tried, if you if you connect to a different session from the same machine or from a different machine, and then you kind of get the different colored cursors for every user, and you see where the other user is focused, and such, like kind of the Google Docs experience in the terminal. So this will be super cool to do it online, to have like tens, hundreds of people connecting to the same session. I want to also be able to add, like, for these multiplayer sessions, you will also have multiple backends. So like imagine, for example, in one tab you have your machine, and people can go into your tab and type stuff in your machine and open new panes and such. And in another tab you have my machine, and you can go there and open new panes in my machine and such, and maybe have a shared machine. Maybe my machine is like read only to you, and like stuff like that. All of this is configurable. You have your whole team in the same session, each like doing different stuff. And yeah, we definitely want to do this, but this is farther down the line.
It's very complicated. But from my egoistic perspective, right? If I wanna teach other people, then, like pair programming or
streaming,
or streaming, like having multiple people and then interactively, maybe asking a question is much easier if they move their cursor over and maybe type even what they thought of, or if I change this line this way, would this work, or do I understand this correctly, the lifetime thing in Rust, for example, right?
For sure.
And that would be a real cool tool for teaching, actually. Then. And I'd pay for that.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah.
No, that sounds great. I guess there's an optimistic view from you to be able to finance your life with this. So that's kind of cool, and I wish you the best of luck that this actually works out. So yeah, if you enjoyed the use of Zellij or just discovered it and realized, I should support that, use GitHub sponsors. Do you have any other way of being sponsored, or is that like your only?
I also have LibraPay and Coffee. I prefer GitHub sponsors because the other services like kind of take their own cut, and
so I don't know, people would donate $5, but you only get 4 out of them or something like that.
I don't remember the percentage,
but just to explain
like
the concept. And the GitHub sponsorship is actually fairly straightforward, so they don't take much. All right,
pretty much. GitHub sponsorship is also more visible.
It shows up on GitHub and gives you details about the developer.
People see, and no choice. I mean, we are humans. When we see that someone has sponsors or has over a certain amount of sponsors, it's easier for us to also become sponsors.
Yeah,
it's just a psychological thing. So GitHub sponsors is more visible.
Yeah. And I guess also the other social media tools that exist in GitHub help you too, right? So the stars of your project, or
for sure,
the amount of contributors and all the other things.
Yep.
And then your eyes go towards also the information that, there's a GitHub sponsors going, and your desired amount is not fulfilled yet, right? Because you want to, make a living.
Yep.
And as a programmer, with open source, that's not so easy. Yeah. But it's great now that those things exist, right? Back in the day, with shareware, like really back in the day, you received like envelopes with $1 inside and stuff. So now we have those micropayments going with
it's
the
really
platform,
cool.
So that's pretty cool.
It's really cool. I'm very grateful to all these platforms, really, honestly.
Yeah. So that basically would bring me to the concluding questions. Question: would you have any hints or suggestions or advice for fellow programmers that want to venture into becoming an open source maintainer? Maybe not full time as you, but in general, what would be a thing that you learned that you want to share so that people are aware of it before they take on that adventure?
Difficult question, because there's
of course,
because there's a lot of answers,
right?
So a few things that I find both very important and difficult for us as developers to do. The first one is prefer doing rather than not doing. We can kind of find ourselves stuck in the loop of, I need to finish this thing before I put it out, like what is finished, what do I need to add to it, and no, I still need to. I find many people say the phrase, like even companies say the phrase, "We are going to open source this." This is, in my opinion, this is a total anti-pattern. Like, if you say that phrase, you're wrong. Like, my subjective opinion, of course. Like, you start with an empty repository. You start with an empty repository, and even before that, you start with a story. You tell people the story about like what you want to create. You create an MVP with them, and like you start at it. It doesn't matter if it crashes everyone's computers, if it doesn't do what it needs to do, if it's like total crap. Just prefer doing.
So that's the main thing. Just get it out there, and then from there you will actually keep working on it. Otherwise, it's just a story, basically.
And other than, like, in addition to preferring to do, then don't let people get you down. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, especially as developers, if you're like talking about developer tools, then like we kind of have this tendency of like looking at something and saying, why does this like need to exist? Like, why are you reinventing the wheel? Why didn't you use this other tool? And why, like, and it's like, these are things that, like, as a creator, as someone that like wants to give birth to something new, are hard to hear, because you keep need to defend. You feel like you need to defend yourself. Yeah. Like you need to like, oh no, because and so my advice is to just not get into this conversation. My thing always, like, because people always compare Zellij to tmux, and I'm like, use tmux. It's okay. Like, I don't need I don't need to win you over as a user. If you want to use my stuff, happily come join in, help me develop it if you want. Like, but like, this is not a conversation that needs to happen in your head. So, don't let the naysayers like kind of get you. Just do your thing and be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot for the interview and for the amazing answers that you've given. I hope it helps other developers to discover the tool, first of all, and maybe also venture into the open source world, help Zellij and others develop your own plugins. And thanks a lot for meeting me. And maybe I can do this again with some other developers. That would be cool.
Great, thanks for having me. Yeah, I had a great time.